Hello, I'm Lauren Mullenbach, Assistant Professor of Geography and Environmental Sustainability at the University of Oklahoma. In this video, I will be discussing climate justice. Although every person on Earth will experience impacts from climate change, certain groups of people will experience more of the burden than others. These groups are some of society's most vulnerable: the elderly, children, people of color, rural communities, those experiencing homelessness, and those with low incomes. Climate change can affect people's health and their economic and social well-being. Health effects include chronic health conditions from exposure to air pollution and water pollution, heat stress, heat stroke, and related conditions due to extremely hot temperatures. Mental health impacts are related to loss of livelihood, forced relocation, or pessimism about the future, among others. Economic effects include forced relocation from flooding, extreme heat and sea level rise, higher potential utility costs, costs associated with retrofitting, and medical bills. Tens of millions of dollars are spent every year on medical bills associated with extreme heat. During some heat waves, an estimated $5,500 per person per visit to the emergency room is spent. Additionally, low-income households can spend nearly 10% of their income on utility costs from extreme weather events, such as ice storms and heat waves, which is nearly 3 times the percentage that higher-income households pay. Small-scale social effects can include separation of communities after relocation, while large-scale social effects can include rising inequality in who is able to adapt to climate change, receive emergency help, and receive investments in adaptation. Other social phenomena include changes in tourism activity, rescheduling of large sporting events due to heat events and storms, and increased food and water insecurity due to shortages and changing growing seasons and locations. What I just described will occur at different rates for different groups of people. Those with societal privilege, more resources, and higher social status will be able to more effectively adapt to these effects that are amplified by climate change, while those who are vulnerable will be affected more substantially. These disparities and effects from climate change are known as climate injustices. But what is climate justice? To achieve climate justice, society must not only correct for current inequalities and access to healthy and safe environments, but also prepare for future effects. Current inequalities we must address include disparities in access to shade and air conditioning during extreme heat, disparities in effective stormwater infrastructure, inequalities in exposure to air and water pollution, and broader societal inequalities in access to financial and transportation resources. Some areas of cities, for example, have fewer trees and vegetation that provide shade to cool people in buildings. Research has shown that the urban heat island effect, a phenomenon in which the temperature at the ground is hotter than the ambient temperature due to asphalt roads and other infrastructure that absorbs heat, is stronger in neighborhoods without much vegetation. Sometimes these areas can be up to 10 degrees Celsius or 18 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the rest of the city. These areas tend to be where high concentrations of low-income and racial or ethnic minority residents live, making urban heat a climate injustice. However, actions like planting and maintaining trees in areas most in need can help correct this injustice. Other strategies include creating cooling centers and helping households in these areas access air conditioning. Flooding is another issue that can unjustly impact vulnerable groups of people. Some places have inadequate stormwater infrastructure, which during extreme precipitation events can damage homes and cars and can impair emergency services. Areas most prone to flash flooding are often where society's most vulnerable live. However, building stormwater infrastructure in needed areas, especially green infrastructure like rain gardens, can correct these injustices. The disparities I just described already exist, but some impacts of climate change may not be felt for a while, and therefore require preparation. Impacts related to future events and conditions require us to plan for climate change. This is why some places have created climate action plans. For instance, Oklahoma City has a climate action plan called Adapt OKC. Similarly, Tulsa, Oklahoma has a plan called Resilient Tulsa. These are the city's blueprints for adapting to climate change. Adaptation strategies that plan for climate justice include investing first in the areas that will experience the worst effects and have the most vulnerable residents, engaging with communities to ensure that climate adaptation infrastructure matches community needs and priorities, and ensuring vulnerable residents have the resources they need in weather and climate emergencies. Sometimes efforts to prepare society's most vulnerable populations for climate change come with unintended consequences, such as gentrification. This can occur when improvements are made to places with high proportions of low-income residents who may be susceptible to financial stress or displacement if property values were to rise in response to those improvements. Gentrification is not inevitable and can be prevented through policymaking and effective community outreach. It can be easy for us to assume that climate adaptation investments will not lead to harm, but we must remember these current injustices and potential unintended consequences when we plan for the future to avoid maladaptation. With intentional planning and policymaking, we can correct climate injustices and ensure all residents have what they need to adapt to climate change.